Hi guys, thank you for sticking around to the bitter end. The title of my presentation is The End of Writing as We Know It. That's actually not the title of my presentation, but I thought I'd get your attention with that one because when we published a book that was filled with cat photos and misspelled captions, this is what people said. And then I said, really? Is it really that shocking that people will read funny stuff in books? And I thought, I wanted to talk to you about, why I'm here, and I wanted to tell you why the good people at O'Reilly think that I'm qualified to give this talk because I publish cat photos on the internet. And really, it's because we do this. We let users take photos of cats, caption it with misspelled words, and send it around to millions of people. In fact, we actually got pretty good at this. And so I'll teach you how to do this in this very simple way. First, you get a picture of a cat. In this case, this is a picture of a cat with a pancake on his head, a mini pancake. I need you to think of something that you want to write. Pancake cat has no idea what happened to your breakfast. And then what you do is you then apply it by misspelling it a little bit. We call it LOL speak. And now it becomes pancake cat today has no ideas what happened to your breakfast, right? It's on his head. So the sites that we run, I Can Has Cheezburger, which features photos of cats with misspelled captions like the ones that you saw. We also run Failblog, Memebase, The Daily What, Failbook, and 40 other ones. And we reach 16 million people every month. We serve billions of videos and page views every month. And we have so far published 7 books from our sites. And it seems that as people are moving from having books to being online, we're actually going the other way. We're actually going from online and publishing books about these blogs. And in fact, our books, we actually have multiple New York Times bestsellers in our portfolio by taking what you can get for free on the internet and putting it on dead trees. Right? So what we've been able to do is actually capture this zeitgeist and this entertainment need and deliver it across a wide range of consumers through bookstores, through the internet, and actually make New York Times bestsellers out of these books. Now, I just want you to know, I didn't invent any of those concepts. I didn't actually come up with the idea of posting cat photos on the internet and having captions on them. In fact, I bought the first site, I Can Has Cheezburger, 8 months after it started back in 2007. And I've actually built a business out of making people happy because other people send me photos and send me captions. So if you think about that, I actually created a New York Times bestseller by taking a site I didn't create, of photos I didn't take, of captions I didn't write. Right? So what did we do? Right? And so this is what we produced. This was our very first book. This is a New York Times bestseller. And that is a photo of one of the first cats that appeared on our website. And we don't even have my name on it because I felt it was embarrassing if I put my name on a book that I pretty much had nothing to do with other than actually publishing it. And the reason we published our books was that we wanted to reach brand new fans. We knew that people who are on the web really knew about us pretty well, that they knew what we were doing and they would already send it to their friends. But we felt that reaching an audience who went to bookstores and picked up books of cat pictures was a wholly new audience. And we wanted to reach them, and publishers were willing to pay us to reach them. What a fantastic business model for us. And we actually modeled ourselves after who I believe is the king of the blogs to books phenomenon. If you know of Post Secret, it's a website in which you put your innermost secrets anonymously on a postcard, and you basically draw or make it pretty, and you send it in to this website. And Frank Warren, the person who runs the site, will actually post it, scan it, and post it on his blog. And it's some of the most amazingly moving things you will ever read in your life. It seems kind of frivolous to think that why would these people who have no connection to you whatsoever put their innermost secrets on a postcard, decorated, put their heart and soul into it, send it to a stranger? But it happens every day, and he's actually published 4 books out of this process. And if you look at every single one, it is an interesting and a beautiful look into humanity. Well, we don't do that. We publish cat photos. So it turns out in 2009, when all this phenomenon was happening, there was a mini bubble. Publishers were paying outrageous sums of money to bloggers who had funny websites and wanted to turn them into books. And in hindsight, it turns out that the success rate of these blogs to books deals were actually industry average, meaning that these books sold no better nor no worse, actually, than any other book. And what I was finding out was that editors and publishers were going to bloggers, and the bloggers would say, yeah, I've got millions of hits. And they would be wowed by the word millions, and they will actually spend money and buy the rights and give them in advance. And I'm going to break this down for you guys, because I felt like there was a significant deficit in understanding internet traffic. So let's say somebody tells you to have a blog that has 5 million hits in 3 months. That sounds like a lot, right? Well, in fact, a hit is a request to a server, not to get too technical here, but in fact, a photo blog like ours does about 10 hits every time you load up a page. So let's say you go to a website and you stay there and read about 5 pages on average. So that means on average, you consume 50 hits. And let's say you divide that over 90 days, and it's roughly about 1,000 times somebody visits your site on a daily basis if you have 5 million hits in 90 days. I just looked the statistic up. On average, McDonald's has 1,520 visitors every day. In other words, publishers were going out and bidding on a book of a blog that served 2/3 of a McDonald's because they were wowed by the number 5 million or whatever million that was. So the scale had a big problem. It turned out that they weren't technically literate. These were very web-savvy people. They went out and actually understood what the audience, what the appeal was, but they were not vetting the actual numbers behind it. Once it came to logic of determining how internet traffic worked, they just kind of gave up. Yep. So the lesson that we learned was that if you sell to your fans, if you sell to the 2/3 of McDonald's, that's a niche audience, right? You're not going to get a lot of book sales out that way. But if you try to go out and win new fans, that's how you make money. That's how your publisher makes money. That's how you make money. And one of the most important things that publishers started looking for once they found out that this was a bit of a bubble was, what will you do to get the book that I publish with you to more and more people's hands? And that became kind of the criteria for deciding who to publish and who not to. And in fact, we were studying actually a series of books that came out recently that were engineered to be bestsellers. And these were the books. All 3 of them were New York Times bestsellers. I'm sure you know Tim Ferriss's work, The 4-Hour Workweek. It sold very, very well. And Ramit Sethi, who actually came out of nowhere with his personal finance blog. And in Ramit's case, this was a blog to book. In Crush It, that's Gary Vaynerchuk, who runs Wine Library. And all of them engineered their books, meaning they actually studied the process of marketing a book and had a plan to market the book prior to the writing of the book. That seems kind of crazy, right? Why do people not do this in publishing? Why do we say, hey, author, you gave me a manuscript. That sounds really good. Let's see if we can go out and market it. Why do writers not think about marketing these books as they write it? Like, you wouldn't go create a car and go, now that I'm done, let's see who would want this. Right? When somebody actually designs a car, they think about, how do I go and market this? Who wants this? Where's the demand? Where's the need? And so here's some of the questions that they asked, because we actually did some work with these guys to try to figure out what were they looking for. Some of the obvious ones, and I think Kathy's points about actually going out and studying the behavior of people who buy books is really fascinating, because they also looked at the same thing. What does the Amazon.com bestseller ranking, how does that work? Right? How many books do you have to sell in an hour for you to become #1 in your category? How can I create a large opt-in email base prior to the sale of the book so that by the time my book comes out, there's a bunch of people who have been waiting for it, driving up that demand? And this is actually true in the case of Tim Ferriss. He actually calculated the number of radio stations he could be on to talk about his book the day of the launch by incrementing his day by 10-minute segments. Every 10 minutes from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m., he got on a call with a radio station and did dozens and dozens and dozens of interviews. That's the kind of dedication that it takes to engineer a New York Times bestseller. We can also take that to the more internet-ish tactics. You can actually do quantitative analysis on how many people have to click on a title that looks like X, how many people will click on titles that look like Y. You can literally go out and buy a Google AdWords and purchase advertising on Google for certain keywords, let's say it's related to the topic that you're writing about, and actually test different ads. And let's say you put the title of your book in there, and you have variations of your title in the ads, you'll know what ad people click on the most. And in fact, if you think about why would you title a book like a link, it's because people will read the title of your book as a link in 99% of the cases online. When somebody blogs about your book, guess what they link? The title of your book. And if you don't treat the title of your book like a link, you're actually losing out on marketing opportunities. So they also did giveaways. They did some amazing giveaways the day of the launch because they realized that if they sold 1,000 books in and out at Amazon, they could be #1 in their category. This is all stuff you can do prior to the writing of the book. And this actually influences how you title your book and how you actually write the book. So the blogs to book deal. So we actually looked at all these books that actually went to press and what sold well and what didn't. And it turns out that the reason the blogs to books phenomenon did not create any better results than any other book, despite its internet reach, some had much bigger audiences, some did not. Publishers took new media, they turned it into old media, into a book, and then they applied traditional execution, meaning they did the same things that they would do for this book as any other book. If you do the same thing over and over again, you must expect the same results. And this is exactly what happened. It had the same results. The winning formula is take any old media, books, vinyl, I don't know, whatever it is, and apply new execution. The world is changing. And the reason you want to do new execution is because the web has spawned new ways for people to connect, yet we still connect through the same mechanisms of great content. This guy, Johannes Gutenberg, practically invented Twitter, right? This guy invented publishing. And to this day, the fundamentals of why we read what we read, the fundamentals of why we want to connect with each other through writing remains the same. We want to tell our stories. We want to read interesting stories. We want to learn from each other. We want a collective history that we can put into an immortal form. Those things are exactly the same. All that's changed is how we actually distribute that content and how we receive and filter that information. Just like any other major technology, just like email, just like anything else, social media will boom and bust and eventually be taken for granted. Right now, we're in the middle of the social media boom. It's new. It's uncharted territory. We really don't understand how this will work. But a year or two from now, there will be a bust in social media because all those people who tried it and it didn't work for them will just give up. And just like the dot-com bubble that burst back in 2001, people will say, well, that was a fad. But it's not. Because social media genuinely has the ability for us to reach out to more and more people and connect more effectively. And over the 10-year life cycle of this new technology and new platform, by the end of those 10 years, we will actually see a rebirth of social media as a really effective and engaging method of reaching new audiences. And people complain about, writers actually complain to me about, people don't appreciate good content anymore. I hear that all the time. And I find that fascinating. I think they tell it to me because I put, funny photos on the internet, right? And so they're like, they want to read your stuff. They don't want to read mine. Like, that's not true. Like, I'll make this bigger for you. I give them the world's tiniest violin, right? The reason people say and complain about the fact that other people don't want good content anymore, they've been saying that since cavemen days. I used to draw horses on the cave wall, and you covered it up with something else that was like horses with women that are half naked. They don't appreciate my content anymore. What really has changed is that the good content is basically a trap. It's a mind trap. It prevents people from thinking qualitatively about how we perceive good content. Good content is like saying, I just think mine's better than yours. It really has no logical meaning. It's just an opinion. What we do know is that people think this is good content. Thank you so much, publishers of the world, for giving us Snooki, right? But then again, who am I to judge? Because this was one of the back pages of our book, Fail Nation, where I had the graphic artist draw a phallus in the middle, right? I know this audience. I know it very well. And what's really changed is that data has arrived. People know far more about what we want from each other. We know more about what people will read. We have much better feedback loops. I can actually go out and create a website and see if it's going to be successful within 2 weeks. That pace of change has increased. We can allow for people to be fragmented. you can actually make a business selling, apparently, a book that appeals to 1,000 people. Right? That's what blogs to books has become. It's fragmentation and small publishers going after niche markets. And there's increased competition because now every book that's ever been published is available on your device, on your mobile device. So this is what's changed, not good content. And this is what we can use to actually figure out what do people want and what do people want in a book form. I was talking to somebody at The Onion. And we had sent them a copy of Fail Nation and the I Can Has Cheezburger books, and they said, we found that our staff really, really loves Fail Nation. I'm like, oh, why is that? Because they put it in the bathroom, right? That's an interesting data point. I never realized that the holiest place in the Onion's library is actually in the bathroom instead of the actual library. And that's the kind of information that helps me understand. So I actually ask people, hey, how many of you put our books in your bathroom? And like, you know, when I go to conferences and things like that, and they're like, oh yeah, I put it there. And it's funny. So we designed the book for the bathroom, right? We want to make sure it's small, that it's actually compact, and all the books that we publish are actually relatively bite-sized, with the exception of a book that we're publishing about fix-up jobs. It's actually hardcover because we want it to be sold in Home Depot, right? We're taking these data points and applying it iteratively to our process so that we can try to make a better product that fits that category of people who's looking to buy our products. The data has the biggest impact not on your content, but how to reach the right audience. Using social media, advertising, creating a blog to support your book, creating feedback loops is all about reaching and connecting with the right audience, not about redefining what is good content. Good content remains still the same. Great prose will still sell a book. Great stories still sell a book. Great controversy still sells books. It's really how we reach our audience that has changed. Technology doesn't change who we are. It just helps us realize what we've always wanted. We used to be okay with 5 channels of television, but now we can't be satisfied with 200 because C-SPAN's like half of them, right? So we now move to the web because we can get video on demand. It seems that it appears that we've always just wanted video on demand everywhere we went. It just turns out that the only method and technology we had was the boob tube. So now that we've got the internet, we're moving online to watch video. So the technology just helps us realize that that's what we've always wanted, and that's why it seems like magic. And I'll end with this little yak, the yeah really yak. And this is my Twitter handle. It's the first time I'm giving this specific presentation for you guys, so I hope that I really appreciate your feedback, and hopefully I can take this feedback loop and refine my message. By the way, thank you. And after this, I want you to stick around. I need 20 volunteers. So thank you very much.